I've been advised by the organizers not to repeat my name, which you've heard. So I'll tell you my other name, which is Tamuno Firi, or Afiri, a name I got from my grandmother, who you heard of from the teaser you just watched. And I think my role today in this whole thing is, I guess, the role of storytelling and art in very serious public, socio-political context. And I'm here to really talk about my hometown. My topic today is a love story with home. And it really talks about, I guess, how in losing my grandmother at a formative time in my life, at 19, where I think people, humans, are typically looking for their role in the world, like what they're supposed to do, where do their ancestors come from. The one, unfortunately, the only grandparent I knew, and my ancestor really died at that very integral time of my life. And I tried to remain very curious. I tried to, find how to make sense of something maybe you haven't ever grappled with. And I think that this exposed my, it exposed the fact that I struggled with some sort of belonging in the world. And this was how I started to write. I think in coming back for her funeral, I think that was like the most visual marker that just as she had died, my environment, my childhood, where I grew up, because we grew up in Kirike, was dying as well. And I think when you've lost someone, it's really deep, because it prepares you for your own loss as well. And I was able to, just keep writing. My dad feels like I found a way to trick myself to always go back to Kirike, but with a camera. And what started initially as a thesis in uni ended up being a photo essay that has now morphed almost a decade later to a film that we're hoping will be out in Q1 of next year. I am the founder of IMBUU. IMBUU actually is inspired by her. Her name means womb, it means core, it means gut. Again, I tried to make sure that I was being honest with myself and didn't try to ride with the typical narrative of what you find with the Niger Delta, because I think that the Delta has always had this very dangerous, stereotypical vibe of oh, this is what happens, these are oil people, this is militancy, this is this and this is that. And I think in how we've told this film with Pülö, we're really telling it from a very personal, very cultural, very truthful angle. We're not trying to go too far or create things that don't exist. And I think in doing that, IMBUU, which really means a narrative collective for the other, for people you never really see on mainstream television or media, are at the forefront of our story. And I'm very moved by telling very indigenous story on a very global scale, because I think that that is what makes us look very equal. And that's also what humanizes us. I think where journalism fails, where typical news stories and media houses and how they like to parade stuff, art allows you to just say things as they are. And I think another thing that we really grapple with is when did oil identity become the main identity of our people? When did we lose sense of what it means to be water people, to be in tune with our environment? I think even growing up, I remember growing up in Kirike, there were times where some of my uncles would say the tide has come from maybe half a mile away from the actual river. We were always very in tune with our environment, our culture, and it even dates back to the earlier centuries where we used the moon to know what the time was. We used the moon to know how short our days were, when the tide leaves and when it will come back. So I think in a way, what I'm trying to say with this very personal story is we have a duty as people to have a mentality that is very based on how do I give back to my community? What skill do I have to make sure that we are stepping away from the very, very like stereotypical narratives that are everywhere? How do you just say things as they are? And I think that's what we're trying to do with IMBUU. We also have an exhibition on the other side of the room. It's called How About the Oil Rivers? And the whole context to this is obviously the pollution that is in our waters that's replacing how we fish, how we enjoy food and culture and life. And most importantly, it talks about the Oil Rivers Protectorate and the role it had pre-Nigeria. Early centuries, back in the 15th century, there were a lot of trades going on, which were, I mean, not the best. It was the slave trade era. We moved on to, I think, about the 18th century, where we had a lot of palm oil. There was a lot of talk about what this region was by the Gulf of Guinea, what the Niger Delta is, what that whole region holds. It was actually the forefront of civilization. It was because we were water people. People would have to enter and sail and find all these things. But it seems like since we became very colonial in mind, and when our former owners took over, there was a way we kind of let go of who we were before. So I think what I am trying to do with IMBUU is how do you marry history, the facts, the social humanities that aren't like easily available in schools? How do you find a way to make that entertaining for people to enjoy, feel, be honest, and also reflect? And I think that's why, I'm here telling you all to seek deeper within ourselves and what our role in this world is. Because I feel like if we had the idea to seek for things that don't make sense in our system, truthfully, we would be able to I think, find ways to fix things that cause chaos for us even. So yes, I hope that you're able to check out our booth at the end of this room and really be moved by, the story of the Ijos, the Niger Delta, or Kirike people. I think it's important to remember to be creators and not destroyers, and to tell our stories as they are, because a love story with home is not always easy, but I think it's always worth telling. Thank you so very much.